Are we ready?
As ever.
Well, it's on, so we're going to have to be.
Oh, perfect.
William,
hello again.
welcome back, sir.
1 week later, round
Number two.
Mm.
We had an excellent response, thank you, for the last podcast.
Lovely.
My members inside the group loved it. You offered your self-adjusting training program. People took it, didn't they? Absolutely amazing.
Thank you
Really
to everyone.
good. But I'm also going to bring up some negativity. I'm going to call you out as soon as we start on the podcast.
Oh, no.
And I'm not sorry about something you said last time. And I should have called you out at the time, but I was being too polite.
Okay, go on.
Let me tell the story then. Let me tell the story.
Paint me a picture, Connor.
Last time you said you didn't like personal trainers. I agreed. That's okay. Wait, don't interrupt. Don't interrupt. Last time you said you didn't like personal trainers. I agreed, even though we are personal trainers, so we really shouldn't say that, really. And then you said you were looking for an alternative name, and then you said you were gonna start maybe thinking about calling yourself life coach.
Lifestyle coach.
Lifestyle coach.
Lifestyle coach, yeah.
I'm not sure if that's better or not. Maybe the call out continues. Because I was just thinking about this after, and it's not your fault. It's not your fault. I understand why you don't want to be labelled personal trainer, but you also can't say life coach because you don't coach life. You only coach a part of life.
I couldn't get life coach is too Buddha.
It's too hippy dippy bullshit.
It is.
That's what it
yeah.
is. It's been absolutely just watered down by just idiots.
Yeah.
Who call themselves life. So that's a worse label. Not your fault, but I think that's a worse label than personal trainer.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean.
I'd rather be labelled PT than
really?
than life coach, because you can't call yourself life coach. That just
No,
sounds
life coach
grandiose.
is horrible. No, lifestyle coach.
Lifestyle coach is not.
Life coach, yeah, like you say, you're floating and you can do that Buddha shit, and you're all, I'm not about that. But lifestyle coach, that's about lifestyle.
People are just pretending to be able to do that, though. No one's really doing that.
I'm qualified. I know what you're talking about.
We coach people on life. We coach people on a part of life.
I'm qualified in life. Have you seen the size of my apartment?
It's this big. Qualified in life.
I'm qualified in life. I am, in fact, alive.
That's true. That is true. The University of Life. But I think lifestyle coach, I don't know. That sounds kind of like, I don't even know. I think health coach. Or just
that's better.
Or you might just have to fly the flag of just personal training, and just be a better one. You might just have to turn the name around and just just don't worry about what other people.
Well, that's the plan.
Is. I know.
In the long run, put enough information out there to.
I was just thinking about it afterwards, and I just thought,
no,
you just can't. I can't let you do that.
I prefer lifestyle coach. Life coach is.
I don't know. I don't know what lifestyle coach insinuates, though. If you say lifestyle, that style to me means like clothing.
I mean, I'm not stylish. We discussed this last time as well.
So that's what it reminds me of. Maybe I'm getting a bias because one of my friends is called Joy Gregory, and she runs something called the Style Guide, where she teaches women how to dress better.
Does she do men?
I don't know. Maybe she could do.
I'm nearly a woman.
I don't know. So maybe I'm just thinking the word styling and getting a bias from there. But I don't go with life coach.
Not life coach.
No,
that's horrible.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Anyway, today we've come to talk about glute training, bum building, booty blasting.
Crikey. It's a favourite topic of mine.
It's a favourite topic of a lot of people's at this minute in time.
Yeah, it's very fashionable, isn't it?
It is very popular.
And it's very doctored on Instagram. And
What do you mean doctored?
Taken and run with by Instagram personalities.
Doctored
and
like altered?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant DR, like a GP. like it's been general
Dr. Glute.
I was like, what, sorry?
Brett Contreras, he's the only doctor of glutes. That's it.
Yeah.
No, I know it's been.
His book right there, you see that, the glute guy.
Have you? You got it?
Yeah, I've literally got it.
Oh, that's awesome.
I've borrowed slash stolen it from Martin.
Of course you have. Borrowed slash mine forever.
It's mine now. it's just what it is. It's just what it is.
It's what it's become. You'll give him something back.
I like the glute trend though. What do you think?
I like that it's out there.
Not just because everybody likes a nice bum, men and women.
I
will say.
It's a bit peachy, we don't mind.
Also for sports performance, glute power and strength is up there, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that the hip thrust and the trap bar deadlift are two of the highest correlating exercises with sprinting speed and jumping height and sports performance in general.
Jump height, specifically the trap bar, yeah.
Yeah, and I think hip thrust is correlated with sprinting. I'm not an exact sports person, but there's definite benefits for sport. There's definite benefits for posture.
Yeah.
I always teach that the glutes are the lower body posture muscles.
Well,
basically like the upper body kind of the upper back muscles, keep your shoulders straight. I always teach that the bum is lower body posture and keeps the hips
I
forward.
teach a core class twice a week, and half the stations I do are glute stations in a core class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But glutes are core.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
When people think
just
core, they just think abs, don't they?
I mean, the one I do usually has 2 anterior core, 2 side lateral flexion stuff, so like side planky things, or suitcase carries, and then 2 glute exercises as well. And that about
suitcase carry? You mean just literally walking straight, holding like what would be a suitcase, but like one heavy thing?
But like a heavy ass kettlebell.
No, that's
awesome
that's
core
a sport
exercise.
specific thing as well, but really
very good.
But
Very
that's
good.
a nice, well-rounded core workout.
Oh, thank you.
So for posture, it's important, isn't it? It helps people with lower back pain. There's just loads of benefits.
The correlation between lower back pain and inactive glutes. I mean, inactive is a false term. You can't have inactive glutes, otherwise.
I'm glad you say that.
You wouldn't be standing up.
I hate it when people say my glutes are not firing.
Yeah, like
what does that mean?
They are.
I know. How are your legs like up? Like
it's just,
you said.
Well, I always say in my core class, it's just the problem is that geographically the lower back and the glutes are really, really closely related, but they serve 2 entirely different purposes. Like you say, performance and sprinting and power output. Your glutes being the biggest muscle in your body are awesome at all those things. They're strong, they're powerful, they're not particularly good with endurance, but they're awesome at driving power, and they're big load-bearing muscles. Whereas the smaller supporting structures of the lower back, they're just like guide wires on a telephone tyre. They're just designed to be equally taut in all directions, and they're designed for stability, hopefully enough so that you can drive power through your spine, but that's all they're designed for. Now the problem is when people's glutes are inactive, I know we've just said we don't like that, but when they're inactive and...
What would be a better term? Under-functioning.
When they don't have a particularly strong mind-muscle connection with them, when they're underutilized and just kind of neglected a little bit.
What if the mind-muscle connection is fine, but the muscle itself just isn't strong?
It's just weak.
Yeah, maybe it's just
an
a
issue.
weak muscle.
It's just a weak area.
Maybe it's just a tight muscle.
And the problem that happens with that, you find it in day-to-day life or just in the gym, is that those stronger load-bearing muscles, the glutes, if they're not doing their job properly, that load-bearing activity gets shifted to the lower back, which just isn't designed to be a load-bearing area. It's designed for stability, and that's where you end up for a lot of the time with back pain. And you can to put it to all kinds of things. Sciatica, it'll probably be a glute issue. If you've got like piriformis syndrome, be it long or short versions of, probably something to do with your glutes, be them too weak or...
the sciatic nerve running through.
Exactly.
I've actually got, that's literally, I was just mentioning to you before we started the show, wasn't I, that Greg Roberts, master god-level physiotherapist, is coming to sit in this chair and he's going to talk about sciatica. That's literally what I'm going to quiz him
awesome.
on. Yeah, literally.
I'd like to watch that, yeah. He's also annoyingly jacked for a physio.
And
what's that about?
I don't know why I keep inviting everyone who's better looking than me onto my show.
I mean, I'm smaller than you, so you can have that.
Ridiculous. I don't think that's true.
That's so true.
I hope for you it's not true.
Well, I'm definitely fatter, there's that.
I do try. I follow my own 6 steps to slim principles, sir.
Oh, God.
It works.
You're the worst, by the way.
So, what were we saying?
Glutes.
Well, of course.
Always talking about glutes.
Of course.
No, they are. They're an awesome... Aesthetically, they're awesome. Functionality-wise, they serve a great purpose, and they're often underutilized in the jobs that they should be performing, and that can exaggerate and explode into injuries and whatnot elsewhere.
Last time you spoke about the squat being a what exactly? How did you term it? Like a movement before an exercise, or how did you?
Yeah, it's a movement of life before it is an exercise to apply load to, as in. Try having lived your life and never stood up and down. It's a squat. It's what it is. It's what we do. Whereas, no one's walking around benching since they were 2 years old or something.
Yeah, and you spoke about strength in reserve as well. And the glute muscles are all very important for that squat technique, for strength in reserve, for, like I said, lower body posture, keeping the hips under and nice and strong, balance, all that kind of business. And also it's trendy and fashionable, isn't it? Especially with fat loss as well, because if you've got no fat and you've got no muscle, you've got no nothing. No. Now you're Kate Moss from the 90s and no one really likes that. No one really wants that anymore. I don't know if anybody wanted it at the time, to be honest. I think it was just shoved in people's faces, so they just assumed that they wanted it. I don't know why. If you've got no fat and you've got no muscle, you're just straight up and straight down. People don't generally want this. No. People say to me, I don't want to be too slim, but I don't think that's true. I think they mean they don't want to be too skinny. I don't think people would mind it if they were a little bit slimmer, but they still had some nice curves, to go with them. And part of this comes from muscle building on a woman, doesn't it? Because I teach that we can only do 4 things with the body, with any area of the body. build muscle, lose muscle, build fat, lose fat. Yeah, so then that's the shaping, isn't it? So if ladies want to lose the fat and not end up just straight up, straight down, then we want to build a little bit of muscle. Target areas usually being lats and shoulders on the top to create that like sort of, I don't know, taper at the top and then going down into a slim waistline with low level of body fat and then coming back out slightly at the legs. That creates like the hourglass figure sort of thing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
By building up the bum and the hips and the thighs and the hamstrings just a little bit, and then tapering it down nice and beautiful. So it leaves people healthier, stronger, fitter, faster, sexier, all business. Doesn't it?
Everything you could possibly want.
I've been trying to grow my buttocks upon your recommendations for like...
Yeah, you've got the tiniest little efforts I've ever seen. It's a little flat.
I've been told it's perky.
Perky?
Perky.
Flat.
See when I pop my words...
Pronunciation.
That's when I'm taking it serious.
Oh, really? When are you going to start taking glute training serious?
I'm taking it real serious, and I'm here to quiz you on that as well. I promise you, I'm taking it. I've just got that skinny white man ass. It's just difficult to build. It's been difficult for me to build every single muscle in my entire body. I'm not.
Have you seen the size of your delts?
Yes, but I've done lateral raises every single day of my life for like 10 years. If somebody told me I had to train for 10 years and I'd only be this big, I wouldn't have started.
You thought, doing it and not tucking it in.
I would have become a dentist.
I'm going to be fat.
Or something. Yeah. I would have done something else. Being jacked and muscly is not my natural thing. I don't really think. No, I don't. Some people are born bigger than me. You know, some people who've never trained can bench press more than me. Yeah. And I've been training just forever.
It's the way of the world, isn't it? I've always been astounded at my ability to get strong and not put on the relevant muscle that you would see. Like, when I took my squat in the first year of training it up from 100 to 150 in the first year I trained squat, I think I added about 1 inch to my quad.
That sucks.
It's fucking bullshit. It's what it is. It sucks so
you
bad.
No protein intake or what?
Minus protein.
What did you do?
Try and explain that. Explain that.
No, I don't know, because muscle mass and strength are correlated on directly
proportional
scale.
And there is a correlation.
It's directly proportional.
Yeah, there is correlation.
They've even measured it in powerlifters. People have bigger...
Put them on a bodybuilding program and
people have bigger chest circumferences,
bench
whatever
more.
it'd be. Yeah, bench more. Always.
And obviously it's just relative to an individual. Like, I'm still on that same trajectory. It's just, this is my strength gain and this is my muscle gain. Like,
this is my strength. I'm just not strong.
You're the opposite.
I'm just not strong, bro. It's just like, and it's not that I'm not trying. I'm just not. Naturally, some people are just way stronger than me.
You've also never had the biggest interest yourself personally in being the strongest, have you? You've never really cared that much.
No, it's not my interest.
Like, I quite like training. You don't.
No, and I think that made me a good personal trainer, because I understand that my clients don't like or want to be there either. People, We both don't want to fucking be here, but we just got to do it anyway for the result.
But some things are just necessary evils.
Some things are just necessary, aren't they? Yeah, some things are just necessary.
It's like we talked about motivation last time. It's just, you don't really need it. You've just got to grit your teeth and do it.
So... I believe as well, like we were talking about slightly inactive muscles and stuff like that as well, when I was younger, I was more interested in bodybuilding when I was more like 18, 19 maybe, or something like that, and I was doing a lot of squats, and I used to have really big thighs.
You used to be able to squat a lot?
Yeah, I used to squat a lot, yeah. I wasn't well-rounded. I couldn't hip thrust anything because I'd never tried. I'd never really stretched or anything. I did my hamstrings. I used to blast Romanian deadlifts and hamstring curl and stuff like that. So my quads and hamstrings were powerful. My lower back was also powerful because I could Romanian deadlift a lot. But the glutes were not strong from my squatting technique not being amazing either, putting too much, not evenly loading throughout the muscles, probably protecting it and putting more pressure on the quads than I should have been. And then, as you know, eventually my hips on the front start to get injured.
And then who had to fix them?
You, and I'm still on that journey, and Greg as well, who's coming to talk on the podcast, and I'm still on that journey now. I've been doing yoga every single day for more than 2 years, just trying to just get the flexibility just up and looser, and trying to strengthen the glutes up to get everything more even and well-rounded, because I think I was a victim of poor practice, of my own poor practice when I was younger, let's say, causing my hip injury through exactly this. So I've come to you in the past for glute training recommendations. People come to you for glute training recommendations every day. Every day. Feel me, bro?
For the glutes. Yeah, and there's a fairly black and white sort of way to go about training glutes. It's pretty simple. and it just revolves around a few big compound movements, a few little, like a hip hinge, an abduction, a sort of external rotation.
No, you're going to have to slow down.
A lunge.
You're going to have to slow down. For the listeners at home.
Science.
Using words.
Okay.
For the listeners at home, hip hinge, what's this?
So, let's first...
Abduction, what are you saying?
Let's take a step backwards, if we shall, and we'll examine the four...
Huh? Let's begin.
Are we sitting comfortably? Arms and legs inside the vehicle. Games at all times, please! We'll examine the four the four functions of the glutes. So the first one is hip extension. I'm going to get...
You can do it. Watch out for that glass.
I'm also going to thrust, so warning, you can put this is not a PG video anymore. I'm also doing it directly, our eye line,
Your
so
head's
that's great.
just off the camera there, but it's okay. Continue.
So, hip extension
I like
is
how you've chosen
this.
to thrust in my direction.
Exactly.
You're giving me the
I can get closer.
It's just like...
It's a courtesy call.
No, it's good. It's good.
So, hip extension is this.
Your thighs have gotten bigger.
Thank you, bro. That's
Your
nice of you to
thighs
say.
have gotten bigger.
Well, like we say, we're getting fat. Hip extension is this.
Yeah.
Roll number 1 of the glutes.
Yeah.
Okay. External rotation is this, turning your foot out to the side. Yeah. That's function number 2. Anterior pelvic tilt is number 3. Sorry, posterior pelvic tilt is number 3. So that's taking your hips from this position to this position. It's quite an ugly position.
Is that not the same as the first one, hip thrusting?
No, because that's a lower back movement, and that's tilting your hips out of...
Hit me with the first one again.
So the hip extension, you see my lower back stays flat, and I just push forward.
Do it towards me for the camera as well then.
So back stays flat,
forward
hip extension, and now the posterior tilt is going in and out of that extension in my lower back, like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So one moves the back up and down, one moves the hips in and out.
Yeah, it's a control of the hips. It's just a tilt. So that's 1, hip extension. Number 2, external rotation, and then abduction, sort of removing the leg laterally.
Oh, pulling your leg out to the side.
Yeah, it is. And again,
I never do that. Do you think that's effective?
Very.
I never do sidey legs.
Very. I wouldn't. It's more of a primer. I think it'd be done for warm-ups, preventative measures, and then rehab if you end up with an injury. I only do it as a warm-up now for my squats. Prime.
And you think that helps?
Very much so.
Really?
Very much so, yeah.
I've never done this like sideys.
Yeah, very much so.
I could look cute doing that.
You would. It look real nice. But it's a lot more complicated than you see people than people give it credit for. It's more about your understanding of your connectivity with the floor, with your feet, than it is just about shifting a leg out to the side. For example, when I'm doing that lateral movement, say with a band around my feet, I'm not training the moving leg. I'm training the static leg.
Really?
Yeah. Which is where people go wrong.
I've felt that before, and I know another thing that I felt is also glute kickback. Because I have done sidey legs before, but attached to
lateral kicks.
Sideys.
Dickhead.
Hey. Settle down now, bro.
Go on.
I've done it with my leg attached to a cable. Like a band, like a little band attachment on the cable, and then sidey side.
Yeah.
And I've done the glute kickback, where you turn the other way and you kick your leg backwards, and I've also felt that in the other leg as well.
So as you're doing it that way, that would be more of the leg that's moving. That would be more of that motion. But no, it's more about your understanding of the stability of the leg that's on the floor when you're doing it, say, with a band, which I would argue as a blanket statement is the better option. It just is. And it's really, really hard if you're doing it right. So it's about gripping the ground with your foot like a monkey, creating an arch with your foot. Which
would you do this without shoes on?
Or flat shoes. Yeah. Externally rotating your knee. So again, for those watching at home, that's this movement. So turning your knees out to the side. At no compromise to what your foot's doing. So it doesn't want to roll out onto the side. It just wants to scrunch into the floor by pushing your big toe down. Yeah. Then you would shift your weight over onto one leg, take the other leg up and out to the side. Now it's the stability of this leg that I'm doing. It might almost feel like cramp in the underside of my foot with how hard I'm gripping the ground. And it's a lovely way to warm up your glutes. It's a lovely way to prime that position on the floor, and it's a really healthy thing to do for your knee as well. Not concentrated and isolated to the knee, but the knee only being a hinge movement, all it can do is extend and flex, so it's dictated by the above and below joints, that being the mobility of the ankle, so the movement in the ankle, the stability of the foot, so your ability to just maintain one position rather than
which is
lose
surprisingly
tightness.
hard if you ever
So
try and
hard.
stand on one leg just for like 10 seconds. It's surprisingly one.
And the stability of the glute as well, of the hip, sorry. So the above and below joints, they will dictate the position of the knee and how safe it is.
That's my worst thing in yoga. You know, like I said, I've been doing yoga for a long time. I'm quite flexible on the static. I'm not very good at balancing.
Okay.
You know, when they do like the one leg pose and then you bend forward.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly.
It's probably because you put most of your practice into stretching.
Oh yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You sound like Kool-Aid. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Break through the wall. That's how we should start the podcast next time. I'm going to run through this wall.
That'd be amazing.
Go, oh yeah, and then you're going to get really angry.
Hopefully we'd edit that in because I kind of need that wall. But
Nah, you don't. That's not load bearing. We're all good. Not load bearing like glutes.
So true.
But yeah, so that's an awesome way to warm up.
True.
And that encompasses, like we said, a fair few functions of the glutes there. You're using it for stability, you've got your lateral kick out, so the abduction side of things, and that's an awesome way. That's something that I would do to warm your glutes up and prime them and fire them. Right. Now the first movement that I would always do if I was to do a glute dominant session would be a hinge, which is, if you remember that hip hinge that I did start with, that hip extension where I'm pushing my hips forward, where I thrusted it to you, sir.
I enjoyed it.
Glad. That would be a hip thrust, is just the king, and especially when you add a hip circle, so one of those little bands, when you add one of those around your knees. And what that does, if you look in between my legs, is it feeds the problem of bringing your knees in like this. Your job being to extend the band and create tension in it, imagining there's a band around my legs here. And then you're already working your glutes in one position, which is that external rotation and abduction.
Yeah.
Then you're going to be lying on your back with a bar on your hips. You'll know what a hip thrust is. And then you're going to push it up towards the sky. That's hip extension taken care of. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're conscious about that posterior tilt in the hips, you can apply that to it as well. And then you've got that. And that's all four elements of how the glutes work and how you can add resistance to them being trained in one movement, which makes it the king of glute exercises. Not only because of its ability to squeeze and contract, but also because its ability to progressively overload. So we talked about last time in the last podcast, the two main things in training and hypertrophy and growing muscle is the amount that you do and the weight that you do it with, and just getting better at both of those things, doing more and doing heavier. And glute training the hip thrust is a really, really susceptible exercise to progressive overload. It means it's really good at getting stronger. I was hip thrusting 180 the other day. I can't even pick that off the floor.
All right, so before you continue, thank you so much. I've just got a little question about what you were saying. Because what I've noticed, you recommend use of the band sometimes around the knees.
Always.
Okay, always. So this makes my question even stronger to you then. I can do a lot less weight with the band, and that's a common thing. But when you're saying the thing that grows the glutes and the thing that's the advantage of the hip thrust is the progressive overload, and then you're using a tool that keeps lowers or hampers the progressive overload, then what do you think the advantages versus disadvantages of using the band versus not? Like I've tried, I might just be not trained at using the band.
So this is it, I think.
Because I've not done it very much.
One of two things. I think you're either using too strong a band, are you using a really thick, material
that
one?
death band that you gave me that
too
one
strong.
time. Because I'm a beginner on that position.
I'd just say
okay.
I don't fully
a normal hip thrust for me is like 100 kg for 15.
Yeah.
With the band on, I was on 60 and dying. That's nearly 50% less.
So I'd say that band, be it in general or just relative to you, is too heavy.
Okay.
You just dial it down a bit.
I'm not strong.
If we look at the size of the glute maximus, the main muscle doing the thrusting, the bit that you can do with 115, versus the size of the muscle doing, which is the glute minimus, doing the external rotation, the stuff taking care of the band, it's tiny. One of them's like this big, probably this big on me. One of the other one's like this big. So you're trying to apply a similar load to a muscle this big than this big. That's like trying to lift the same with your bicep as you can your quad. It's not going to happen. So don't put a band on that heavy. Maybe work into it.
Lighter band, more training.
Lighter band, wider knees.
What do you think the application for muscle growth of the band is, bearing in mind that the band's only applying static hold, which would be isometric, would it?
Yeah.
So it's applying static hold, and to the glutes in the abduction position, the out position.
But
and we understand that static holds are not major for muscle growth. Full range is major.
It doesn't have to be. It's never going to be full range, not in a hip thrust. But you can.
That's going to be my next question to you in a minute. Go on.
I'm a head kind. I try and keep up, bro. Come on.
I am doing a podcast here. That's why I'm quizzing you. Just come on.
So long as your knees stay in a neutral position, so as in they're always at least as wide as your feet. They don't have to go wider. That's an already safe position. It's just optimal to go wider. So you can start your hip thrust in a nice sort of closed off position. Then as you explode up and do your hip extension, widen them. So it'll be a small range of motion, maybe of 4 inches or something, but you can go through it.
That makes sense. All right.
Where are my guest slippers?
You keep putting your socks onto the camera.
Because you didn't give me
like
guest
an
slippers.
Animal.
Give me some guest slippers.
Like you've got no self-respect. You keep putting your socks onto the camera. I do need to get guest slippers, don't I?
You do, man. You promised me last time, and I'm very disappointed. Just saying. Go on, boys, say it. I'll put my feet off your table. Go on.
No, that is absolutely great. Thank you so much. I never thought about that. For me, I'm just quizzing you now, just on the personal. When I do my own hip thrusts, I sometimes do it without no band. Do you still think there's an advantage to widening the knees at the top? Mm-hmm. Because I do that sometimes, but lately, I just play around with technique and find different ways.
Yeah.
I've been finding more glute activation by keeping narrow and then powering to the top. Just me.
Okay. Well, again, relative to an individual, so long as that isn't hampering technique at all, like it's
okay.
Your knees are still in line with your feet and they're wide enough for it not to cause an issue.
Yeah, because it could allow more lower back moving and less hip rotationally.
Yeah. Although, because if we also look at what happens when we internally rotate, so the opposite, this is going to be a really unattractive position for me. When your legs come this way around,
I like that, though, I'm feeling quite insecure. So continue.
It's because you've not been training legs, bro.
Oh, don't do this to me.
So if you bring your knees narrow, that's very indicative of a lower back sort of lordotic position. So that goes hand in hand with extending your lower back, so not using your glutes. Whereas an externally rotated position makes me want to flatten out my lower back a lot more.
No, say again, I don't understand, I'm sorry.
So, 2 things that go hand in hand are internal rotation and a curved lower back.
So I'm keeping it not like that though.
Yeah, so
like that.
That's fine.
Just hip width and straight. And sometimes I'm going up and extending.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling it good. And sometimes I'm just finding that I might feel a more center squeeze, just keeping it dead on straight.
So anatomically, you would always say on paper that the wider the knees are, the more of a cue you would have to squeeze the glutes. Okay. But sometimes you've got to throw the book out the window and just go with what works for you.
All right, so no biggie either way.
No.
Lovely. Thank you so much. My next question then to you was going to be, and you brought it up beautifully, about the range of motion on the hip thrust, because did you see that a brand new study about hip thrusts and squats came out, and squats showed more glute growth by miles than the hip thrust?
I didn't see that. No.
Did you not? Allow me to enlighten you, sir, because I did, and I've already
I had this debate the other week.
And I've already solidified my opinions based on it, so we'll see how it goes.
Tell me your opinions as well.
A brand new study came out. They got, I think, already trained people. They were already quite strong. I'm butchering this already. And then over a period of time, they got 2 groups. One did loads of squats. They were all women, which I think matters, because I would imagine in my head, you tell me whether this is right or wrong, that squats work a man's glutes less than a woman's glutes, due to less hip width and the muscle being smaller in general proportionally.
Potentially, and also a woman will just also try and make a squat work her glutes more.
But all the participants were women, that's just a point of it. And they got one group to squat a load and one group to hip thrust a load, and then just see what happens. They measured quad growth and glute growth. I'm gonna use terrible hand signals to then do the graph. But in the squat group, they got loads of quad growth and quite a lot of like glute growth, but way less than the quads, way less.
Of course.
Like less than half.
Yeah.
But quite a lot of glute growth and loads on the quads, right? On the hip thrust one, they got less glute growth than the squat, but basically no quad growth.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
It makes sense, doesn't it? It makes sense. And they thought the conclusion of the study was it's due to the range of motion being smaller on the hip thrust, because technically volume equals muscle growth, doesn't it? And volume is sets times reps times weight times distance, which is why if you only do half reps, if I bench 100 for 10 and I go all the way down, all the way to the top, I've moved 1,000 kilos. If you only go halfway down, technically you've only moved like 500 kilos or something. So you only moved it half as far through space.
Yeah, the
as
total
me.
tonnage, more or less.
Yeah, half. Due to range of motion. I suppose if you've not seen that study, then I can't ask your opinion on it necessarily.
No, do it.
But what I thought to this was, makes sense, and I thought that hip thrusts still have a great place, because what I see personally is lots of women doing way too much quad work and not enough glute and hamstring work, and just ending up with giant thighs from just going to, even in day-to-day life.
It's because people...
We use, I'm standing on the wire. We use quite a lot of thighs just to get up and down from places in day-to-day life, don't we? And then ladies go to classes and they do about 1 million quad
Talk
squats
about it, inactive
and about
glutes.
1 million lunges
Inactive
and
glutes.
stuff like
I
this.
said, yeah. I'd also say as well, no, I wouldn't. What was I going to say? Guess I'll not say that. No, the squat will always be more of a quad movement than a glute. That were it. Will always be more of a quad movement than a glute movement, but it's marketed as a glute movement. That's what I'm talking about on Instagram.
Yeah.
Is people will go booty builder workout at
But
home,
now
and
they
there'll be one variation of a hip thrust in there. Those 4 things I said the glutes do. They'll cover one of them. It'll be hip extension, and it'll not be a good version of it.
But now technically the squat has been shown to build more glutes than hip thrust, but I think if you just squat, if everybody just went, yay, squats for glutes like they do, you just see women just getting huge thighs.
Do you know if they... What did they do with the relative load there? Do you know?
No, I'm sorry.
I'd have to
strength training is not my thing, which is why you're here.
I'd have to read the study to give a full,
you would definitely
in-depth appreciation of it. But so one thing I will go
Maybe
through
next time
briefly.
I'll ask your opinion on it next time then.
Yeah, do. Next Friday. Tune in. One thing I will say, so one of the reasons why I think the hip thrust is like one of the better glute movements is because it's loaded against hip extension. So it pulls you into hip flexion, which means that there's much more demand in a hip thrust put on hip extension than there is knee extension. You don't really go through any range of motion at the knee, which is why there's very little quad. You go through a lot of hip extension, which is why there's lots of glute. If you look at a squat is loaded what we call axially. That means up and down. That means that there's demand put on me getting back up, rather than there is pushing forward because the bar's on top of me. So the demand is put on knee extension much more than it is hip extension.
There's much more. Back and forward a bit, but not as much as.
There's much more rotational torque.
Yeah.
So that put on
torque
my knees.
Pressure.
Torque meaning how much power output you need to have, like in a car.
Okay, yeah.
You know, torque at the wheels.
I don't know anything about cars.
I also don't know anything about cars. I just use that to relate to people. Because I'm a fucking nerd. But there's much more torque and much more demand put on knee extension than hip extension in a squat, which is what makes it just a quad exercise.
Yeah, it's people who do squats to try and build up the bum. They are going to build up the bum, but they're going to build up the thighs so much.
More.
And the amount of ladies that have ever come to me and said they want to get huge thighs is
I gotta say that's just not the goal.
It's basically none.
I'm trying to get there, but
me too. So I'm on squats.
Yeah, I'm on squats.
Yeah,
I had hip thrust the other day. Didn't like it. Won't do it again.
So hip thrust then is your primary movement.
Yeah.
I think to speak a little bit on Instagram, like you said, the reason that it doesn't appear like that on Instagram and the reason people get strayed from the correct path is because that is very fucking boring.
It's boring and
progressive overload of hip thrust, just the same thing.
And when it's done properly, do you know how sexy
again.
It is? Not very.
Not at all.
Not at all. It's double chin inducing. It makes your bum scrunch up and look like a smashed peach. It's not great. Your lower back's all
red
flat.
in the face.
Yeah, it's not sexy.
Yeah.
So when they do actually demonstrate it, they're all extended in their lower back. They're at the top and breathing out, and it's all great. And they're demonstrating it with 20 kilos. Rather than the actual way that you should be doing it, with about as heavy as you can manage, with awesome technique, with your chest tucked, your double chin in place, and your hips tucked the right way.
Double chin in place.
Yeah, a little pouch hanging out over the bar pad. That's what it's meant to look like. It's not an attractive movement.
No, but it's about looking not attractive for 10 minutes in the gym so that you can be beautiful and strong outside of the gym.
And that hasn't worked for me yet, but I'm trying.
Yeah, I'm still trying to, bro. It's just what it is. For the outside of the gym for the other 173 hours per week.
And the other reason it's bad on Instagram is because it's often marketed as a home workout, and it's something like I said is what was the word I used? something so good at progressively overloading, something that you can only really go heavy on, you can't do it at home.
Yeah, you've not
home
got big
workouts,
weights, you've not got big weights at home.
Yeah.
With the bum being the strongest muscle in the entire body, it's going to be quite difficult to make it really strong without having access to weight equipment.
I'd say you're going to struggle to train at home without making it anything other than an interesting cardio session.
I would say I would maybe agree.
Like there's things, push-ups, maybe yes.
You could do a single
if you're the
leg hip
most
thrust.
untrained, you've never really trained before, you could probably get away with some stuff at home, like split squats off a sofa,
Yeah, if you're a bit
one-legged
single-leg
hip thrusts.
Yeah,
That's my. We know what we're doing. But
still
you've only
struggle
then got about 3 weeks worth of them before you need to overload it and put something on top. And what you're going to do? A tin of beans? No, you need to get to the gym.
Yeah.
And
you
use
need
weight.
to get at least a home barbell.
Exactly.
Or something.
And
just
then
to get bought.
4 weeks later, you've outgrown that. Before you know it, you live in a gym. Just go to the gym.
Yeah, because I have ladies and they come in and they struggle on like a 20 kg hip thrust like on the first day, but then 2 months later they're on 80.
Yeah, they're doing that one-legged.
Yeah, literally one leg.
Exactly.
Yeah, not struggling and doing it in a circuit and stuff because the human body is very adaptable, isn't it? And the glutes are the strongest body, so they're the strongest muscle in the body. I mean, so they're a very adaptable muscle as well.
Again, because they're usually so untrained in people, the response, like if this is you on a graph, just steadily just sitting at homeostasis with your glutes and every other muscle, and then you start hip thrusting, it's going up.
Yeah, so if you're
across the
beginning,
board
you can
on
get away
most
with it
things.
for a little bit of time.
God, yeah.
But
And you want to take advantage of that. Like the progression that I can get away with at the gym is an eighth of what half my clients are doing because I've been doing it for twice as long.
Just longer, yeah.
Which is a shit deal, but you've just got to deal with it. So if you're starting your training at home, you're cutting yourself short just because you're not allowing yourself to progressively overload. You're in the most optimal environment for progressively overloading, and you're not doing it because you're doing it at home. Get in the gym, get a trainer. It's the best way to do it. Invest the money so that you know you're doing it right, because it's literally, physiologically the best time that you'll have for any amount of muscle growth. So make sure the training's spot on. I wasted that whole period of my training because I was like 16 when I started or something. So I spent the first 3 years actually figuring out how to train, and by then my noob gains had gone out the window, and then I was just stuck.
That's because we're dumb. People who are now
so dumb.
Smarter than us pay people who already know what they're doing, like us now, to skip forward in time so that they don't have to spend. It took me 3 to 5 years to figure out what was going on with training. I guarantee 3 to 5 years with nutrition. Longer.
Oh God.
Maybe longer.
I'm not even
to
there,
be fair, nutrition science changed over time as I was learning about it and new things were coming out.
Yeah, I mean that goes in and out of fashion
at the front
so
of
bad.
it,
Yeah.
But it does take a long time, and you can trial and error your way through it for half a decade. Or, like you said, you can drop the small 20 to the PT, and then you can just learn how to do it. You can just learn how to do it.
And they're fashionable new purple 20s now, and they're all plastic.
I actually really like them.
And shiny, and I like them, so give me more.
I don't know, though, why they keep putting the lamest people of all time
I haven't looked who's on it.
The money. I can't even remember because it's so uninteresting. I'm like, has no one good ever come from the UK? There's like, I can't even remember. I don't know. I've not got my wallet, otherwise I'd whip one out and we'll have a look.
Should we put you on it next time?
No, I'm not. But there's people better.
You're all right.
Just like, do better, England. Do better.
Who have we had?
So boring.
Who knows?
So, but the Queen's on it, of course.
Of course.
The Queen's
Queenie,
fine.
Queenie.
But on the other side,
Liz.
we have like
Thanks for watching.
Lizzie. but we have.
Thanks for tuning in for glute training, Liz.
I know. Probs needs it. Aging populations and all that, bro. Aging populations.
Yeah, you're right. Shall I train Liz?
Strength in reserve.
I reckon they'll let me in if I just can knock on door.
You've got zero chance.
Why?
Because you're a rascal.
It's just the ponytail. Oh, Christ.
There's no way. So,
the next thing we were going to discuss was its place in nutrition. You've just reminded me.
I don't think we've finished.
Oh, and this. Okay, let's go.
I don't know.
Delve deeper.
I've not checked how long we've been on podcast.
Well, I'm trying to keep concise and go with the general response to last video of stop chatting bullshit, Connor and Will.
No. Is that what response we got?
I mean, off one person.
We're carrying on. I'm soz.
Should we just play a game of chess in silence for half an hour?
So people would watch that? No, they wouldn't. I don't know what I'm doing.
Not with me and you.
I don't know what I'm doing at chess. So with glutes, your number one recommendation is to go with the hip thrust.
Yeah.
To try and get as strong as possible at it.
Yeah.
Not to go with flouncy little exercises you see on Instagram. They're just doing that to make it more interesting.
Yeah.
Because they're hip thrusting 5 times a week, these Instagram models. And if they just put that same video on Instagram over and over again, it'd just be so boring. And if you've got good technique, it looks like you're putting the same video up again and again.
Yeah.
Because there's no variation.
Yeah, that's
it's
awesome.
you in the
That's what
same
you want.
place, doing the same reps with just like 1 rep more or something once a week.
PB, yeah.
Yeah, just boring. So they just get no followers. So they just flounce it up and they try and make it look sexier and interesting. But then it leads people astray slightly, doesn't it? So we're here to set that straight a little bit. Unfortunately, it is boring, but the boring basics are best, aren't they? So a hip thrust, get strong at it. What else? How many? Let's do quickly. How many reps? What's good?
Like we discussed last
On
time,
hip thrust?
doesn't matter so much. I'd take advantage of the going heavy factor.
Because it's safe to.
So
It's not like doing a shoulder press where you can smash it onto your head. You either just lift it or you don't.
It does.
Pretty much it, isn't
there
it?
is a bit of a transition period, I think, with a movement like hip thrust, where even with the best knowledge of the best technique, a certain amount of load will push you into like an extended back or something. So I'd cap the reps at 6 as the lowest.
Okay, yeah. I've never gone that heavy ever.
Yeah, exactly.
I always do 10 to 15.
So I'd always say don't go lower than 6 reps, and therefore relatively whatever weight that is. That would just keep you away from the grey area of maybe your lower back's getting too much involved. And then from there, I'd like to say anywhere up to 15. I'd keep it between 6 and 10 1 day a week, so that you can take advantage of that going heavy. Then maybe, and that'll be very systemically fatiguing, which is why I'd only do it 1 day a week, maybe.
So it'll make you real tired.
Yeah, it's gonna just thrash your body more than just you as well. It'll just thrash your body. You can't do that every day. That's like squatting heavy every day. It's not gonna happen. Then maybe have another day in a 10 to 15 rep range, like you say. Another day of another variation of hip thrust, one-legged. And I'd have. So yeah, 1 day you're maybe starting with hip thrust. Another day I'd start with stiff leg
So
deadlift.
you're thinking 3 times a week if you've got goals?
Yeah.
That answers my next question. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Just all the time. 1 day a week hip thrust, I'd say. Maybe 1 day a week. Stiff leg deadlift would be your other prime mover.
Okay.
And then maybe something like a trap bar deadlift because it's an easier version to learn than the squat, or if you're already at a level of training where you know how to barbell back squat. But I say that because there are so many prerequisites to a barbell back squat. Like, I think I'll have been with most of my clients about a year before I'll ever have them really do something like that, because that's sometimes how long it takes to get the necessary mobility, unless they're just a freak of mobility, or otherwise known as Asian, and they can just plummet.
That is
just
a real
hit perfect technique
The
every
Asian
time.
squat's a real thing.
If I'm meeting with an Asian gentleman or lady for a session and we're training legs, I know I'm immediately planning squats and stiff leg deadlift because I know they'll get them right.
Is it because they've genetically got wider hip sockets, or is that?
Maybe a bit more like retroversion in the hips, and then short femurs is usually a thing. Environment is the other thing. They often, like we discussed last time, those countries are much more in touch with the sort of ancestry of how we should be moving. They spend a lot of time squatting. That, like when I was in Shanghai not long ago, I mean, that's not even like a third world place or anything by any means. It's so much more built up than here, but that's how people just interact. In the street, if they're having a fag, they're squatting.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never seen that.
Oh, and it's crazy. You'd have found it brilliant. Walking around, and I'm talking like their foot will be flat on the floor, perfect arch, knees wide, and their bum will be that close to the floor with their spine perfectly straight. And I just want to put 100 kilos on their back and see them send it. It's like walk around Shanghai with 100 kilos, seeing which small Asians I can put it on.
but if you are flexible, it is comfortable to sit in that position, isn't it? Because then when you're down there,
and if you're not filling out your trousers like you,
hamstring sits on the calf.
It is. It's just
there, doesn't it?
It's not an active position. It's just you're just resting on joints.
But my bum's nowhere near the floor because my hips are just too narrow.
No, I mean if I do it, you see how goddamn straight in these. That's how close to the floor I can get. I mean, back's nice and straight.
Your knees are a lot wider than me, though.
But it's because of the sheer length of my quad. If you look at the length of that,
well, you got that long.
That's how much I've got a hip hinge by. That's the amount that my ankle mobility has to take care of. Just like a gangly motherfucker. Just like a tall, skinny man.
Just like a lank.
Yeah.
Hey.
So that's an issue, but yeah.
So, different rep ranges.
Different rep ranges.
Couple of times a week.
Few different exercises.
Couple of variations.
Pinned at the start of each session to hit from a few different angles. Hip thrust, stiff leg. If you don't want to go to the gym 3 times a week, do them on the same day. Pick one and focus on it as a priority. I do
a leg day.
Yeah. I do it with a few clients of mine. Like start with a stiff leg, focus on progressing it. With the progression techniques that we discussed in the last video, and then go on to like hip thrusts after that, and go through the same protocol just in one session rather than two.
I like that you put Romanian deadlift or stiff leg deadlift before hip thrust, even though it's probably not as good of a glute builder in a glute focused workout, but probably because it's more dangerous and because you don't want to be making people tired. And then
it's very easy to get wrong.
Yeah, loading the spine up load, so do that first, get it out of the way, hip thrust safe.
Well, this is it, all the safe, like whenever I'm doing like a push-pull superset, incline dumbbell and bent over row with someone, and they go, which do I do first? I'll just always say, do the push first, because it's the one that you might drop on your face.
That's exactly it, yeah. I always teach that exercises in the workout should go from hardest down to easiest and most dangerous down to safest.
And I mean, equally, if you're in this position and your arms are buckling and you decide the best place to drop it is here, you're an idiot.
Onto your face.
But still, I can see why it would happen. So if you're here and you go, no, or 360, where am I going to go? Nose. Go home. But
once when I was a beginner, I was benching with dumbbells, okay, and I could do like 6 kgs.
You about to tell me how much of an idiot you are?
Yeah. And I was benching with 6 kgs and I'm like 16 or something. And I'm pressing like this and I'm wobbling like you do. And then it wobbled this way.
It looks like you
fell and I started choking
you
myself
guillotined
out.
yourself.
For about a rear naked choking myself out. And for a second I didn't realise that I should let go of the...
that was an option, this. You're a fool, sir.
Accidents happen.
It's amazing you made it to whatever you are, 35.
Exactly, 900. I unracked the bar as well on first day at the gym and got stuck under it on the bench press because I couldn't bench press the 20 kilo bar.
Like a little girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, literally. Some ladies can bench press the bar.
This lady that I met yesterday, the Australian lady, she was wonderful and her bench technique was impeccable.
Anita, the sporting coach on my program.
Yay!
Yes, Anita Grant, shout out. Yeah, she's awesome. Great, isn't she? Yeah. She's got a really nice strong bench, isn't she?
Awesome technique.
Yep, she's been doing it for a long time. She came to me for a little bit of a technique touch-up, and then I've sent her to the king. That'll be you, Squire.
Stop it.
That'll be you.
The prince at best.
So, do you think that's it on glute training then, sir?
Well, yeah, after that I'd just go into a few more pumpy stuff, so like, and maybe another hip extension, like a rope pull through. All the things I'm saying, very universally researchable, so just search rope pull through, learn it, get good at it.
That's a nice tip, just look for the exercises on YouTube.
If you hear me saying them and you're just thinking their words, just go Google them.
Or, we've not done a correct intro for you this time, Mr. Will Hukin. If people want to find you. Yeah, I just want to. I just want people to just know where you are. They know where I am. This is my page. I just want to...
In the ether. Yeah. That's where you exist.
So, you're based in Sheffield, down at Kelham Island, at the gym group. Also, they can come see you. Can't they? I send everyone. I send myself. Go see Will.
Party. But yeah, I'd go hip hinge. So again, that stiff leg and hip thrust kind of fall into a similar bracket there. One's just more hamstring dominant. 2 different days for them, and then after them, I'd go into another. I'd go into another big movement like a trap bar deadlift, maybe a squat, assuming that it's a whole leg day. A lunge. My preferred option being a split squat, just because I can load it to the max. Or walking lunges is another one that I really like. They're awesome glute movements, big powerful drivers, and you can go quite heavy on them. So yeah, a hip hinge, a lunge, another kind of hip hinge, so like a lighter one, like a rope pull through, or a lighter version of a hip thrust. If you're good at hip thrust and you're not good at rope pull through, don't change it. Just come back to hip thrust later in the session and just do it again.
I'm not a big fan of rope pull through.
Yeah, exactly. So if you don't like it, I like it. Again, it's the loading capabilities. The loading capabilities are nothing. I'm never, unless I'm a big fat guy and I've got the weight to counterbalance it, I'm never going to be able to go that heavy. But after I've done hip for a stiff leg and a trap bar deadlift and a lunge, it's about all I can lift anyway. So that's its place in the workout.
That's nice. I had a friend who hurt his forearm as well doing it, and that puts me off slightly.
Really?
Yeah, just having strong legs and just holding it like that, and it just put a lot of stress right there.
I can see why.
In the middle of his
it's hard to get right
bone.
as well.
He ended up with like middle forearm bone pain. I don't know, for like a couple of weeks, from doing that thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tricky one that, but that's another one that's very. you'd want to research the technique of that because it's so easy to get wrong. Yeah. Then I'd do an abduction movement, like the
outies.
That's the one. And then maybe some kind of finisher like frog pumps or something on the floor. Again, Google it. And then we're moving on. Yeah. Next question, please.
I think that's it for the day. What do you think, Will?
Yeah, deal. We covered one of 3 things we wanted to cover.
I think that's absolutely excellent. That just means next topics are lined up for next time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening, everyone. I really appreciate your time, Will.
I appreciate you having me, sir.
I appreciate your knowledge, wisdom,
power.
Thank you. Speak to you soon, everyone.
Bye-bye.